NVDA.com's Daily Brief. The answer to your question is learn the goddamn process, trade your trading plans, don't take too much risk on any one trade, and just let yourself get rich.
All right, hello everybody. We are starting a little bit earlier today, but not much. Hopefully you guys are doing well. I know on the East Coast it's like 10:30 right now, but I am here. So we've got to talk about a lot, right? This has not been fun, this dump here recently. We've also got the S&P, right? All of it's just dying, and it probably seems like, I mean, if this is anything to go by, probably seems like the end of the world here. We're now in extreme fear, at least in crypto. I think stock market's also in fear. So we've got both metrics screaming. When was the last time we had extreme fear? I don't think we've had that for a while. The last time was April 9th. We had 18. And February 27th, we hit 10. But let's go back and just look at that April 9th move in crypto, Bitcoin in particular. Daily chart. Let's just look at this. April 9th. June, April. Good morning, Raphael. So April 9th was right here. Right there. 74K bottom. It was literally the bottom. So if you bought extreme fear on April 9th, you made a lot of money. Okay, let's look at the other time when there was extreme fear. The first one, this was a bit of a longer one, so I bet this plays out. February 27th. Right there, February 27th. You had one more dip after that, and then a massive rebound. If this was on leverage, you could have made a lot here. And then you had one more move down, March 11th. March 11th was here. Another 20, fear and greed. Oh, there you go, right there, another low. And then you had your final one on April 9th. And you can kind of see the divergence, right, between price and the fear. So we're at the initial stage. So one of two things can happen, right? This can be the beginning of further down, or this is like the bottom, and we just shoot from here. The point is that regardless, markets don't die when fear is at 15 and Bitcoin's still almost at 100K. That's not, the whole point of this is to wash out everything and everyone that got long from here. Like a lot of people were probably late longs after Bitcoin went up above 100K. So it's been, how long has it been here? All right, it's been 6 months. We've been over 100K, 80K. So we're just dipping below this to do what? Liquidate those late longs. That's all that's kind of happening here. We're liquidating all those late longs. There's major support down here at 95K. Could we go there? Yeah, I don't see why we can't. But saying this is the end, that's a tough one for me to swallow, especially with price being lower here on the daily chart, but RSI and MACD not making new lows. So this is your, you've got your daily divergence here. Could it go a little bit lower? Sure, it can. But I don't think this is where you're like, oh, it's the end and I'm selling and I'm vindicated for being a bear. I don't see it. I see this as consolidation before we get that final leg up. And I've drawn that here actually. Let me just make sure I have okay, let's get rid of this. And let's say that this is your W. If we W out here, so the conservative W view is at we end up at 135. The more aggressive one is at 140K. So 135, 140K would be the target if we can W here. So if you want to be safe, you wait for a move. Like this is so this is kind of my line in the sand here. You wait for clear daily close without something like a TD7, TD8. Like this was a close over that trend heuristic, but we had a TD7, 8, and 9, so you wouldn't long that. It wouldn't make any sense. But if you want to be safe, you can wait for a close above 108K, okay, and then you can long this, assuming there's no TD 7, 8, and 9. If you have that, you shouldn't long it. And then you should be able to ride it higher. Now, you don't long right here, right? If it gets to 112 before you can long, you wait for a pullback, because there will be a pullback, maybe to 108, 107. But then you get long and you ride it higher. And you can see, but there's only 5 people watching this. That kind of shows like the bearish sentiment. Nobody's really interested in the market here at these bear levels. And I agree, it's been rough, right? This has just been down, 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 down. Like basically since October 6th, right? So it's been about 45 days of bear in crypto. So definitely felt brutal. Stock market's done quite a lot better. So you've seen a lot of people transition the stock market, and you're seeing a lot of discussions of, oh, I'm not going to use crypto. I'm going to only trade stocks. You're going to see a lot like that. I'm done with altcoins. I'm not changing altcoins. You'll see a lot of that. This is all bottoming type talk. This is not something you see at the top of a market. It's just not. It's not the kind of sentiment that you get. If we look at the S&P, we can see on a 4-hour we hit a TD9 at my support level on this trend heuristic channel. So it's a nice spot for a potential reversal. Could we roll over and keep going lower here? Yes, we could, and that will pull Bitcoin down. So keep in mind that these are intertwined, right? Especially on the downside. Market correlation for the last couple of months, there's been no correlation on the upside, but huge correlation on the downside between Bitcoin and stocks. So if this does roll over on the 15-minute, which it looks like it could, it would pull crypto lower. So that's it. And where could we go, right? If this is this is bad though. I don't like if this 15-minute breaks down. Right? If you do that and we close down here, that's going to be extremely bearish for me. I don't want to see, I mean, we can wick down here, but I don't want to see any kind of close below this long-term uptrending channel. Because as I said, if we close below this uptrending channel, which has been intact since the formation in May, I'm going to start having to look for bear setups. I'm going to switch bearish. I'm going to switch bearish on crypto. I'm going to switch bearish on stock market. I'm going to be bearish on everything. But I need to see this channel break down. So until that happens, I can't, in good faith, jump on the bear side. I just can't. I know there's a lot of people that are bearish because on Bitcoin, for example, the weekly chart looks like crap, which it does. It does look like crap, and they've been right since all the way up here. You know, that was quite a good top call. But I cannot, in good conscience, go full on. I mean, this can just bounce from here, right? And we'll just stay in this range. And we could still continue this downtrending here with the divergence, and we'll end up here. But the Bitcoin price could be up here. And that'll put another final divergence, and I think that would be your top. At least for me, that's my general target. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, all of this depends on the S&P not breaking down, right? So you don't want to see this breaking down below the blue line here at 6,700, like closing on a daily chart below this level. A little bit more dump is fine. Almost expected. We could go to this area and even wick below for a bit and then wick back in. But I don't want to see it closing below. Otherwise, I will have to start looking at and considering basically short setups. I don't know what else. I don't know how else to describe it to you guys. The question is, will we break down here? Well, we've got, like I said, the 4-hour TD9 right here. Should at least sit at this level for a while. Worst case scenario, sit here. Best case scenario, we bounce. That's kind of all I have for the S&P. If we do bounce, you know, it's going to be a nice move higher. But really, this 15-minute, we have to see how this plays out. Okay, so that's kind of all I have on the S&P. I'd like to see a bounce. Not guaranteed. We could make one more leg lower. But that's what I'm looking for. This 15-minute can't dump too hard. It needs to bounce. Otherwise, that's going to pull down basically everything. So this chart is kind of the barometer for the whole market in a way. Like if the S&P can't hold up, the whole thing. Okay, Rocky. Thank you, Cotter. Maybe it's too late for. It's probably too late for Cotter. So if this rolls over, I mean, everything's going to roll over with it, right? So this is the main thing to watch for. If you can get this right, then everything else should kind of follow along. And on a 4-hour, it seems like we've still got an uptrend intact, but nothing on these lower time frames looks great. I mean, you can see my RSI over here. Everything is bearish except for the weekly. Only the weekly is kind of holding this up. While on crypto, everything is bearish. Okay, so that's the S&P. Can jump over to Bitcoin a bit, and you know it's basically a worse looking S&P. You can see how every single RSI is below 50. Not a good environment, not at all. It's very bearish looking, and it even looks like it wants to roll over here and head a little bit lower, which makes me think that this 15-minute, sorry, right here, this 15-minute maybe wants to roll over one more time. But when you get into these bottoming areas, these lower time frames it's difficult to get that last move. It's very difficult to catch that one bottom area, especially on these lower time frames. They don't want you to be in the long. They don't want you making money, not even a little bit. So yeah, that's kind of my thought process. Major support here. Makes sense that we bounced. I get rid of a lot of this. But because of the sentiment, I just can't see us getting ruined here. Also, I do have silver. Hello, Min. Nice to see you. Not nearly as much silver compared to other things, though. Okay, so let's look at this. Let's look at max pain. For example, this week, the market, if it closes below 6,800, that's going to be max pain. They actually want to bounce this and keep it and close it up here, 6,800. And if we look at next week, which I think is a lot more options than this week, this is the monthly expiry, right? 21. Monthly expiry. Yeah, look at all those options. So max pain is 6750 next week, 6750, 6800, which would be a close, basically right around here. It's more beneficial to market makers to close in this area or a bit higher in over the next 2 weeks than it is to go lower. There's just too many puts. Look at all the puts here. Insane amount of people that were expecting the market to roll over. Okay, yeah, we went over that. We went over this. As far as news, nothing to really talk about. I wanted to show the TGA, Treasury General Account. I think it's important to show this. Look at a 1 year, and you can see how the TGA is just being built. So when this is, oh Jesus, when this is being built up, is like liquidity being drained out of the economy, and crypto is especially susceptible to this. And you can see that when it started building up in August, that's kind of when Bitcoin topped out, right? So back here, August, right here, right? We basically topped. We didn't go higher. We made a marginally higher high, and then we just rolled over. You want to see, now that the government's reopened, this Treasury General accounts should start to be drawn down, and the money should start to flow into the economy. This is probably a big part of why we stopped rallying and we had that pullback. Once we can see this reverse and roll over, that money will flow into the rest of the economy and pump crypto and stocks. Yeah, Omar, that's true. Well, that's why we have this at 16, and I went over at the beginning why this is basically why you buy. Yeah, I don't see 74 happening. I mean, there's a small chance you could get a wick down there, but I just, like, when you have extreme fear like this, okay, and I showed this here. The last time we had extreme fear like this was back here in March. Okay, initial extreme fear, the biggest was, the first time was February 28th. And we quickly bounced right after that, and we went up 20% before then finally rolling over and making like a slightly lower low. And then you bounced again after we hit that extreme fear. You bounced again and hit 15%. Then we had the highest fear right here on the 9th of April. And then after that, you went up 48% before finally having a pullback. So look, we can make marginally lower lows from here. My point is, when you get this level of fear, you don't say, I told you so, I'm bearish, we're still bearish, you know, that kind of stuff. You say, okay, if I was short, good job, take profits on the short, and then where do I get long now that everyone's scared? Like that's what you ask yourself. Where do I get long? And what I'm saying is, because we're correlated with the S&P, and this 4 hour is on a TD9, right? So there's this TD9. This is a bounce area. This is it. This is the bounce area. We can make a marginally lower low, like I said, a bit lower, and that'll drag Bitcoin down. But once the S&P bounces, Bitcoin will follow along. Okay, that's what I'm seeing here. And even at this level, it looks like it could potentially be bouncing. Like I'm opening longs down here. This is the area to go long, in my opinion. And you could go a bit lower, but give it a range of like 5K if you really want. And that's kind of your range to enter longs. And I think I've explained it extensively enough. So that's my play here. If you want, Reg Domain here is saying, you know, cut your losers, average down as a fool's errand, buy back your position on daily uptrend. Yeah, you can do that. That is potentially a safer move, but you're going, what I don't like about that is you're going to miss a big part of a move. And if you set a tight stop loss, right, let's say you wait for the trend to change, then you buy back up here at say like 102, and the ultimate low is like 95, then where do you set your stop loss? Maybe you have to set your stop loss at 95, and that's a big drawdown. So that's why I prefer taking tight stops, and I'd rather get stopped out with my tight stop than averaging down. So just to be clear, for me personally, I set a tight stop and then I get stopped out. And I have like a 20-to-1, 50-to-1 trades that I do. So if we're talking, you have to define, like, what are we talking about? Are we talking about people who hold spot and are thinking longer term, and people who are swing traders, and people who are scalping traders? There's like 3 different ways you can trade this, and it's all totally different styles. So for me, I'm talking about this from a swing trading perspective, where you're trying to catch this bottom, and you're okay to be stopped out 2 or 3 times, and you want to ride that move up to this eventual chaos target, which, if we make it conservative, right, and assume that this is the W, you hit 134. So if you're taking the trade here, and you set your stop right at the low, and your target is up here, your risk reward is 27. Okay, so you can get stopped out, you know, with trading fees, probably it's like 20 times you can get stopped out. I'm not recommending you do. I think more than 5 is overdoing it. But this is how I see it from a swing trading perspective. Oh, that's my feedback. If we look at, so even the bearish chat in this room is interesting. I've never seen people in here like posting bearishly. So this is interesting. I've never seen this. Whoever, Reg Domain, I'm not sure if you're a TRI member. I've never seen you posting. You're quite talkative today, and very bearish. So I don't know. It's interesting that you're here now and posting. But the point remains, when you have extreme fear like this, you buy. I showed you the 2 other examples right here, April 9th and February 27th. Both times when you had extreme fear, the market was up 10 to 20% within a week. And that should be plenty to, you can set your stop losses, you can take profits, and that's how you trade this. I'm not talking about from like buy and hold for the next 5 years. That's not what we're doing here. This is end of cycle analysis. Hopefully that makes sense, guys. I think it's important to clarify the time frame you're trading on, rather than just saying this or saying that. Yeah, okay, so yeah, so it's interesting that you're here, kind of like doom posting while on the biggest fear day. So that's exactly what like someone from the public would be posting. So I appreciate that, but I would recommend to look at what I'm saying regarding this sentiment index, because you're just following how everyone else is feeling right now and what people are saying on things like TikTok. But it's fine. We'll see what happens with the market. Maybe you're right. Maybe we go to 92. Maybe you get a quick wick down. We can actually look at liquidations index. So we've got CoinGlass, right? And we can go here to liquidations, liquidation heat map. I like model 2 myself. Now these don't always hit. If we go to like 48 hours, right? So going out like a week, there's really not much liquidations down below. 1 month you can go out. Yeah, you do have these at like 89, 80 down in the 80K area, but you also have liquidations up here at the 130K area. I'll be very surprised if these hit. I don't see it. So you're basically in the middle. Liquidations are a crapshoot. I don't, as you guys know from previous streams, I don't like using the liquidation data. But I do like using the actual liquidations. So liquidations that really did happen. And you can see we continue to get this kind of divergence, which is what I want to see for a bottom. So you have your big liquidation on October 10th, right? Then another liquidation on the 4th. And now we had yesterday's liquidation event. And you can see every time it's less, which means that there's less and less people, less and less buyers to liquidate. And that's exactly what you want to see. That shows exhaustion from the buyers. And that means that it's time to head higher and take out the shorts. So you need people to be posting saying, we're going to go to 85K, we're going to go here, we're going to go there. You know, hold your shorts, because on the way up, you need liquidity from them. That's what I'm seeing. And I'm talking in terms of a swing trade. I don't think this is a great area to buy from like a long-term holding perspective. I think it's also important to throw this up, the money supply, right? So this still shows that we decoupled, right? And we rolled over, but this hasn't really crashed that much, right? You had your pullback, and you should see a steady change up. Let me adjust this kind of the scaling to get it closer. This is from Colin Talks Crypto, by the way. I didn't make this. Something like that. It's a little bit better scaling here. You know, something along those lines. I want to shift it a little bit. And again, I'm not saying that this is like perfectly accurate. But something like this, Bitcoin has decoupled again to a degree. But if we want to catch up to this, we can, and we should see this start to rise even further, pushing us up to that 135K area, especially with the TGA being drawn down and China continuing to have different monetary policies that pump liquidity into the economy. All of that is going to provide a bullish catalyst to push the market higher and thereby pull crypto higher. Okay, but the big thing that's going to determine if we hit reg domains 92K area is if S&P falls apart. Like if this rolls over like this, you know, there's a big chance that Bitcoin could do this, right? It could go to this next support area, which is basically right here. If you look left, so that does go to the 92K area. I'm not dismissing that. That is your possibility that can happen if this dumps and we get this move down here, which is approximately, yeah, a 2% further move down in the S&P. And then we have to see if it bounces. If you get a strong bounce, then the bull continues. But if you head down here and you don't see the bounce, then we could be entering a real bear market. So that's kind of what I'm seeing. What does the NASDAQ pulling back to the 200 daily average look like? We can look at the NASDAQ. I understand that is definitely more correlated with Bitcoin. But it's very similar, right? So if we look at this and see on a daily, this does not look good, right? You don't have, we're coming below the trend heuristic channel, which we haven't really gone below before. There's no TD8 or TD9 or anything supporting this right now. However, we do have this 8-hour, which is not fully broken down. We do probably have a TD, but we have nothing. Look at that. There's no TD anything on the 4-hour. That's ugly. Very ugly here. This I don't like. Huh. Yeah, this could head down all the way to here. So this NQ does not look good at all. Let's see if US 100 shows anything different. It's basically the same, right? Oh, we do have. See how the TD 7, 8, and 9 shows up on this one? It doesn't show up on the futures, but on the US 100, it shows up. That's interesting. I wonder why that is. Huh. Okay, so it does show up there. It all depends on does this break down or not. Yeah, you can look at that, Jim. I prefer to look at the liquidity, just the straight liquidity indicator that is pulling from not only, so when you say the 2-year note, I think you're focusing on just the US economy. The global liquidity index that I'm using is looking at liquidity from the entire world. So I think it's more useful than the 2-year note, which I think is only the US. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, I know a lot of other countries maybe buy that, but I would prefer to look at the money being printed by all the countries in the world being injected into the financial system. Because, right, you can take something that was printed or created in China, and now you could buy Bitcoin, and then you could sell the Bitcoin somewhere in the US and then buy US stocks. I'm sure people with huge sums of money they have a very easy way of doing that. Okay, now I'm seeing posts, gold to 5K, silver to 100. Man, crazy posts today. Very, very interesting commentary from you guys here. Let's look at this quickly. So right now, 61.8, 78.6, 88.6 is typically our buy area. So we could roll over and head down here, and that would pull Bitcoin down a bit. But I wouldn't. Here's the thing. Because of where we're at with the sentiment indicators, I would not be shorting down here. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't short. I would not be selling if I'm still holding. if we have to pull back a little bit more, then we pull back. But we're going to bounce at some point. You're going to get like a 10% bounce at least. Then when that happens, then you reevaluate. Are we going to like 130K, or is that it? Or is that the top, and now it's going to turn into a bear, and then you're going to get lower lows and lower lows and lower lows. The same with the S&P, right? So we have to see, do we get this bounce? I believe that we will get either a bounce, either we're going to bounce from down here, or we're going to bounce from here. Either way, we're going to bounce and we're going to head higher. That's what I see. I think that money in the TGA is going to be drawn down. It's going to pump into the economy, and we're going to get that kind of blow off top tunk. Trump is not going to let this economy fall apart. They're trying so hard to run the economy hot. They don't want this market to fall apart. I wouldn't bet against that. Yeah, Rocky, that's true. That's true. Powell's not wanting to print, but they are lowering interest rates, and Trump is trying everything he can to get liquidity into the economy and encourage capital rotation, right? And again, you have to remember that the Fed, the US economy, is not the only economy in the world. Not everything is about the Fed. There's other economies printing money, lowering interest rates, and doing this kind of stuff that can pump the markets. So just keep that in mind. Let's see how this plays out. Short term, maybe we can go a little bit lower. I'm a buyer here, but if we roll over further, I'll just stop. All that's going to happen to me is I'm just going to get stopped out. I'll stop out right down here, right below the lows. I'll stop, and then I'll rebuy down here. This is my next zone, 93, 92K, and I just wait for that divergence, just like how I saw it come in here, right? In the 5 minute, you had nice divergence here. This was a really nice one, right? On the 5 minute chart, you could go to a 1 hour, right? And you can see that if I used my RSI, we're on the other side, right? And then this is our W trying to build, and we're trying to go positive on MACD, and then you can take off. Now, if we don't, I get stopped out down here, and my next entry is down here. It's just levels. And like I showed you, the trade I'm targeting is like a 25-to-1 trade. So getting stopped out 3-4 times is not a big deal. Yeah, Rocky, he might be doing that. It's potentially he might be doing that, but from what I'm seeing and what he's posting, it seems like he doesn't want the market to crash right now. That's the feeling, the impression I'm getting. And it's going to be hard to kind of, it would be a very bad crash if this, like okay, so here's, since everyone's so bearish, I give you my crash scenario. Okay, so we continue to dump here. We land down here. We close here Friday. Bitcoin closes at like 93K area. Okay, we get a slight bounce on Monday. S&P bounces like this, 6750. We sit up here, we do a little bit further bounce. You get a divergence here, and then that's your big top. And then you just head all the way down, right? Retrace all the way down to here, to like 57K area. That's the bear scenario. Okay, if you want to know, so I talked about the bull scenario. This is the bear scenario if that plays out. And with Bitcoin, it's going to be something similar. You bounce back up to like 100K, and then you just roll over and die. And you go all the way down. We'll go, how far down are we going to go? At least to this 60K area. And we're going to take out these lows at 75K. We'll go down. This is your major support zone down here at 70, between 70 and 60, 55K. So we would head all the way down here. In a crash scenario, if we're going to be a bear and the market falls apart, then that's essentially what's going to happen. Yeah, but my point is that I don't want to see us close below this trend line on the S&P. I don't want to see that. If we do, I'm going to have to kind of switch my tone. This is keeping me in bull mode right here. This whole thing and the fact that this drives crypto. Like if this rallies, crypto generally heads higher. It's just how it works. So, but if we close below, then I've got to change. Everything's gonna change. I'm gonna switch bear. Well, that's what I'm seeing. Okay. Let's talk about. We want to talk about some stocks. I'm sure you guys are interested in some stocks. Tesla died recently, right? This was a big dump. We're still in my uptrend though, right? This is my. So same like with the S&P. Tesla has a uptrending channel. We did have a significant breakdown. This would have been a nice short right here. Clear breakdown in RSI, and now we're rolling over, and we could head all the way down to here. We could even wick to this 365. Again, if you want to maintain the bull, it has to stay within this uptrend for me. Otherwise, you know, I have to look at this as a new like bear scenario. So that's basically Tesla. It filled the gap here, so that's what everybody was looking for. But these momentum indicators are very bearish, very bearish. I can't get long on this yet. I have to wait here. This is at least I need to see the 1 hour crossover and consider something. But for now, it just looks like total disaster. So not a fan of Tesla here at all. I want to see this kind of work, some kind of bottom. NVDA, this is obviously pulling the market down also. Not great here. This was not a good move. If we look at a weekly chart, yeah, weekly also rolling over, major divergence here. So another one that does not look good even in the slightest. Although on a 4 hour, it looks like it's trying to W. But this is in the end game, right? If you get a rally here, we're not going some crazy new high. This is end game. So now that the weekly broke down, and we do have an 8, we could see a bounce here, and then that's the rollover. So something like this, we could even make a marginal high, and then something like that. I could see that sort of scenario playing out for sure, without a doubt. Something along those lines on NVIDIA. Somebody mentioned MSTR. Yeah, that one that got destroyed. Complete disaster in MSTR. No, this was a fake out, right? TD9 on a weekly. That should have paused things, but it was quite a dump. Nothing on the daily to make me feel bullish at all about this. If we say this is the top, right? And then this is your like recent bottom. 78.6 is a potential buy zone, right? And that lines up with your support here. See how that all kind of lines up looking left. It could tag that and then move higher at the 200. It is a BFRN. So something like that could happen. But right now, I can't touch this either. I need to see some kind of cross on this 4 hour right here. So I'm going to set that alert. If this can cross, then I'll consider it. I'm not going to try to, jump into bottoms at all. Like this is pretty shit here. So I wouldn't touch it yet. I would wait to let the rest of crypto bottom before you start getting into these stocks. That's what I would suggest. And if you think of this as like the ABCD here, that's your A, and this is your B. See how that perfectly lines up? That's pretty cool, right? These line up perfectly to tag that 196 below 200 level before any kind of bounce. And you also take out all of the lows and head all the way back to where we were a year ago. So an entire year has just been retraced. So that's what I see in terms of MSTR. And I think this is the same for any kind of derivative of crypto in the stock market. You can name any of them. They all kind of look the same, right? Riot also, it retraced everything, but it's only back to September 2025, so it doesn't look as bad as MSTR. But it's coming into, right, this is a big support zone right here. Major support. Could tag this 365 before it bounces. But again, you got to wait for that kind of W. I'm even going to set like a bit of an alert. Circle and coin also look really bad, right? I mean, I think you guys know this. Go to Circle. Disaster. I mean, it's just absolute, just dead. Yeah, and you're even below your 88.6 area. I didn't expect it to get this low, to be honest. But now it has. We just set our 4 hour and see when we start Wing out. And then we can consider, you know, buys. But for now, can't touch it. Even if I think Bitcoin's almost at its bottom. I can't touch this. I just can't. It's just too bearish. So that's kind of crypto names. I mean, people also interested in coin, right? So same thing with coin. Coin doesn't look as bad, but still not great. You see how I have an alert for if the daily crosses bullishly, I'll consider it. But for now, it's just crap. Absolutely crap. You could be putting in a divergence here. Maybe you took out the lows and then we bounce. If crypto bounces, obviously coin also would bounce here. Well, I only consider it a counter signal because it lines up with this. And I can't in good conscience fade this, considering the data, that when you have fear and greed below 20, it's a good idea to buy. And you can get at least a 10% bounce. So I'm not saying that, you know, we can't go to 80K or 70K, but what I am saying is that when fear is this bad, you buy, and most of the time you can get like a 10% bounce. And then you reevaluate after that bounce when you're in the nice profits. I'm mostly looking at this from like a leverage trading perspective. I'm not talking about from spot holdings. Although I do still have some spot holdings. Mostly these days I'm looking at leverage. And so I'm looking at swing trading with leverage with tight stops. So when I talk about like taking a trade in crypto in particular, that's kind of the perspective I'm coming from. Below zero. That's funny. Okay, so those are those three. You guys keep talking about metals, right? So we can look at silver. People keep talking about silver. Let's look at silver on a weekly chart. So silver had a pullback, like I said, it would. I'm surprised we didn't pull back more. But you can see we tagged my 4.669. I had this level for almost a year, and we finally hit that. And now if we look at our weekly chart, see how we had this breakdown and we're coming back inside. So this is not great, right? This is the start of a kind of divergence forming. And you can see on the 3-day, it's very obvious. On a daily, it's not that obvious. So this is like the opposite of crypto. You would wait for these higher time frames to kind of break down, and that's exactly what you're seeing here, right? So you're starting that breakdown, and you can see that even here, I would, like right here, I would consider potential short in silver. Like, now the problem is that this weekly is very bullish, but it's an overbought signal. So, you know, where do you go from here? Do you really think it's going to go a lot higher? I think you're better off looking at shorts here. On a 1 hour chart, this looks like a total short. Like this doesn't look good to me. I would short this and look at the fact that it seems like it's kind of played out. I would like to see some kind of like TD8 or 9 on a weekly. You did get it here, and now it's playing out. We can look at, you know, we can look at this on a monthly chart. So the other thing I think it's important to look at is you have a TD9 on the monthly. Last time when you had a TD7, that marked the bottom. TD7, 8, and 9 here, another bottom, same here. 7 on the monthly marked the topping zone. Did we get one here? No, nothing there on the last top. And here you did get one, and then you had a reversal, and then it moved higher. So it keep in mind, this doesn't always work. Like you had an 8 and 9 here, and then it rolled over and it marked the top. Here you also had like a multi-month rollover. Here also 9 tagged and then big rollover. So I think it's important to look at this and understand that the time to buy was back here, like $33 or $20. That was the time to buy, and now, I mean, now it's exceeded all targets. You can see that previous drawing. We can even draw it from here and see what we get. Like here only points to there, and if we make this more extreme, you get almost there. 55 would have been the target. And you can see how we're only, actually compared to 2011, we're only a little bit higher. But I don't like this TD9 on a monthly, and it's probably similar for gold. Now, you know, anybody that's pumping metals now, I wouldn't listen to them, and I wouldn't listen to any investment advice they have. Yeah, Omar, it could, but the question is when, and I don't think it's going to happen right now. There's too many counter signals saying that, you know, this needs to pull back. It needs to pull back and relax and reset on a weekly chart, and then it can move higher. Even on these lower time frames, like what could happen is you just get this pullback, right? Maybe you take out the lows down here, and then you can get your pump. I need to see a reset. I can't buy at literally the top of the range. The higher probability scenario is you get a pullback, and then you can move higher, or you get a pullback and a multi-year, again, consolidation. That's metals. What else do I want to talk about? What else is popular right now you guys are obsessed with? I've got another like 10 minutes. I'll wait for it to propagate and you hear my question. Let me scroll up, see if anybody asked to look at anything. MSTR we looked at. BTCD looks good. Yeah, BTCD looks good for alts. Oil and uranium. 3 month on oil. What do you mean by 3 month on oil? I don't know what you mean. I don't really trade oil. I don't know a lot about it. So when you say 3 months on oil, I don't exactly know what you mean. Yeah. Sorry for my ignorance on that topic. Soybeans, wheat, corn. Yeah, we can look at those. ENA. Oh, okay. A lot. You guys want to look at a lot. All right. So let's start with oil. I'm going to do US oil. I don't know if this is the best one to look at. This is just what I use. And you can see I had previous things drawn out. I'll get rid of some of this. Let's see if we can draw some kind of parallel downtrend channel for this. Could be totally wrong, but we'll just adjust. Yeah, something like that makes sense. So I would want to see a breakout of this parallel channel to consider any move higher. If we look at a monthly chart, still kind of in a downtrend. I don't see any reason for this downtrend to end. Yeah, weekly also in a downtrend. On a daily, I don't know. I don't see anything exciting or clear with oil. Sorry, guys. I don't see anything clear or exciting with oil in the short term. It looks like it's just still in a downtrend. Maybe if we get to like $50, I'll set an alert. I'm going to set an alert for 50 and over 67. So if any of those two break, I'm going to start paying attention to it more. This was my original target zone from a while ago, major support level in oil that we could see being hit. Okay, so that's oil, commodities, gold, soybeans, wheat, corn. Okay, soybeans. Never even looked into soybeans. So I don't even know what the symbol is for that. This one? Is this soybeans? Oh, so this is interesting. Okay. Look at that bottom with soybeans. There's your 2-week chart. Very nice reversal on the 2-week chart. Monthly. Look at this monthly. Okay, so this is interesting. That's a major breakout, huh? Everything's green to the point of overbought in some cases. Wow, okay. So you're almost at the 1.618 level for soybeans. I'll probably, you'll hit this and you can see there's a lot of resistance there, and you come back down, and then eventually it's going to head higher. It could eventually get to like $15, which I bet if I draw my fibs like this from the high, yeah, so this lines up with essentially the zone where you would take profits / start looking at shorts. The issue is, how long would it take to reach that? Let's see, time-wise. Date range. Okay, so to go from the high to the low took about 2 years. So if we assume the upside, it looks like the upside happens a lot faster. So the last time it happened in a year. And the time before that, going back here, it looks like it took about 2 years. And then this one before that, it took about a year. So we can assume that this is just the beginning. And if we go out about 1 year, we can assume that this will hit in like October 2026 from now. So just keep in mind that this can take a while to play out. So if you're gonna, I don't know how you trade soybeans, but just keep in mind that this trade could take quite a while to play out. It's not going to be like stocks, but that's definitely where I could see it going in a year. But I don't know how exciting that is for people, because a year is a long time from now. It's breaking down, but I'd like to hear how it looks through your bullish colored glasses. Oh, so funny. This Reg Domain guy, you are funny. Okay, so Rocky, I can look at ENA. And we can look at BTCD, which will give you some indication of alts. So ENA, we got to go to like a weekly chart. There's really not a lot of data here. So ENA has a TD9 on the weekly. That's good as an initial bottoming signal, right? You had a false daily breakout here and then a rollover. So I would wait for this next breakout right here. It's kind of like a double pattern like that. And you want to see this start to break out. So once that happens, you can kind of consider longs on ENA, and then you have to see what kind of W pattern you get out of that. For now, this is still concerningly in a downtrend, right? This is not, you can't like max bid this, right? This is not a good idea. I would wait to see this reverse along with the rest of crypto, right? So you want to wait for that reversal, and then you can consider some longs. But for now, other than that weekly TD9, I don't see any real bull signals. It looks quite bearish to me. Died very fast from up here at like 80 cents and never ended up going to my target, which was up here at 140. We stopped dead right here and started to put in these divergences, and that's when we rolled over. Pretty disappointing. But yeah, I mean, alts in general have been disappointing. the past 2 years. Okay, so let's look at SUI. So that's ENA. We can look at SUI. I want to just look at, yeah, so you can see the S&P is kind of breaking down again here, moving lower. The question is, do we break these lows, or do we see a 5-minute chart still heading lower? I'm actually going to put like an alert here, and then that'll tell me when we kind of are maybe crossing back over. Okay, so SUI $1.82. Yeah, that looks like pure garbage. Big breakdown on a weekly chart. That is not good, right? This is a huge something really broke, I think, on October 10th when this happened. Something really went wrong here, and that it's been pretty brutal since then. So same thing applies to like SUI, that applies to all these other coins. You really need to wait for this to put in a W and cross over before you can consider anything. Because first of all, Bitcoin and Ethereum need to bottom, right? So those have to bottom first. So I'm not even looking at or considering any altcoin longs at all. The only things I'm looking at are Ethereum and Bitcoin. Okay, I want to be very clear about that. I'm not pushing to long any altcoins or really any crypto besides Bitcoin and Ethereum right now. I can't. Maybe you can get a nice sniper entry, but I prefer to take my very tight trades with tight stops on Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then after those start to rally and they reverse, they put in clear reversal signals, then I can take profits from those trades to then get into the altcoins, which should rally after. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, let's look at BTCD. Somebody asked about BTCD. BTCD is really just a reflection of Bitcoin and Ethereum, in my opinion. Like that's the big thing. I mean, there are other coins, but it all seems to kind of trade together. So it is breaking down, right, on the daily. So this is your breakdown, and I do expect this is the reason that I'm actually going in about double size with Ethereum compared to Bitcoin, because I do think that Ethereum will perform better. And you can see ABCD target if we adjust. I'm going to ignore this October 10th print. This is the one I think is more accurate, and this lines up with my level here. So I can see us going down to this 53% level to complete that move. Oh, I think that things like Ethereum will outperform Bitcoin percentage-wise, and I'm more heavily allocating to that, assuming we do get this bull run, which I think we will. And hopefully this BTCD is basically why, and we're getting that breakdown finally now, only just recently in November, and that's what I'm looking at on a weekly chart. You can see also we have a TD 7, 8, and 9, so huge reversal signal there, to give further confidence to the fact that, you know, these at least top 10 altcoins are going to outperform compared to Bitcoin, and then the other alts should join later when you kind of do get that alt season. But right now is not the time. It's not the time to buy them. As you saw, some of them are breaking their lows and look really bad. So I would not touch them. I don't have rose-colored glasses, as Reg Domain says. What else is there to look at? What else is there? Yeah, really, this just needs to reverse. Otherwise, we're going to keep going lower. So that's why I've got like little alerts on these lower time frames. And then once that happens, everything else can kind of reverse. So that's the main driver here. I don't like that a 4-hour TD9 was hit and then we're still like making lower lows. Okay. Anything else from anybody? Did I miss anything? Otherwise, I think I'm going to call it. Okay. Be careful out there, guys. You know, if you want to be a safer, the trades that I'm talking about, these longs, are with tight stops, right? Because we are in like a bit of a bear on some time frames, but because of that extreme fear and what I'm seeing with a couple indicators, like I went over, I think that this is a great long opportunity from a swing trading perspective, and so I'm taking trades. But if you want to wait and you're worried about things like reg domain and you can't set a tight stop loss and manage your risk, then wait for the reversal and the trade there. You can do that. Oh, LE1. Okay, Raphael, I can look at that really quick. It's very interesting, Mr. Reg domain. You showed up when there's like peak fear in the market. Very interesting with the bearish commentary. Oh, wow, big dump on cattle futures. What happened here? This is huge. Holy crap. Okay, well, make sure to take profits on your heavy shorts. Wow. Okay. So this is very bearish on cattle futures. Holy crap. Let's look at a monthly chart. Okay, so you can see how we had this initial break, we moved higher, we retested the high with the divergence. Not confirmed on MACD though. So big breakdown, right, on a weekly chart. And yeah, I don't see any reason to touch this yet. On a daily, this could start reversing, but I don't see anything yet. Obviously, it could bounce from here, similar to like the Bitcoin setup. But on a weekly, this looks quite bad with that massive breakdown. I wouldn't touch this at all. This was a nice W breakout. Did we hit that 4.669? Yeah, we did. Look at that. So we perfectly tagged that 4.669 level. See how that works, guys? It's pretty cool. If we go to a monthly chart and look at the entire, like we basically have just been rallying since 2020 with cattle futures. You see how they took out the lows here going back to like 2026 before it finally went on this like massive run. Now look at that, crazy. Pull back to the 182, 38.2 is possible. And if we break through that, then you go to 78.6, 88.6 area, right? That's my kind of reload zone. But we do have this parallel channel uptrend. I think it's important to look at this and say, okay, what has the uptrend kind of looked like here for cattle futures? I'll just line this up. That lines up pretty well. So until this breaks down, I do think it's important to look at this and keep this in mind, that if we get a breakdown, then you can consider something like this happening. But until then, this is just like a pullback in maybe an uptrend. Yeah, if you look at this monthly, right? So you could also consider it from this perspective and say, okay, maybe it can go a little bit lower and then it bounces if it wants to maintain that uptrend, which it could, right? This hasn't fully broken down yet on like a very, very, very high time. Like on a weekly, something like that, it has broken down, but from a very, very high time frame perspective, this hasn't really broken down yet, right? Still maintaining, even on this all the way back. Oh, S&P is breaking down. Yeah. Oh no, it's reversed on my 5-minute. Look at that. See that? And see the trend line? There you go. So it actually needs to be a little bit higher. We didn't cross over yet. Maybe that's your bottoming area. And that's why crypto's kind of just taking out these lows. You know, so it's going to head a bit lower before then finally rallying. Let's see here with Bitcoin. Yeah, Bitcoin hit new lows. Yeah, look at that nice liquidation wick there, along with a TD7. You know, so you could get a nice bounce. Okay, well, I think that's it for me, guys. Hopefully everyone has a really good weekend. Again, be careful, and I will see you next week. Okay. Be careful again.